Well, welcome back to the Unseen. This week we are going to do an imagination activation. So I'll teach a little bit on that, and then I'll give you some ideas and some maybe instruction on what to do. So let's talk about it. All right, so today is an imagination activation. Now, to explain that, I'm sure you all know what your imagination is, but an activation is really another way of kind of saying like exercise. So you could look at this like an exercise, like a way of working something out, building a muscle. But activation, it's really just the idea of getting active in something and turning it on, I guess you could say, learning, practicing, all that stuff. So call them activations. So first, let's talk about the imagination, and then I'll kind of give you the exercise, the activation, so you know what to do, and you can practice this stuff. So imagination, with incomplete understanding, because there are some scriptures on this, we can get this assumption like it's A, either a childish thing, or B, it's something to reject. Well, it's really not true. There's the cast down vain imaginations, and really if you get down into that, it's about like the imaginations that exalt itself above Christ, That's not an exact quote, that's my simple paraphrase. But like imaginations aren't actually an evil thing, though they can be not good. So to give an example of the power of imagination, we're all probably really familiar with worry. Now, if you're in worry, what are you doing? You're oftentimes, like worry and fear, you're oftentimes building a story and seeing stuff, on the inside in your imagination, stuff that's not real, and your worry is creating a story that you are connecting with in your heart. And like you're like playing a movie over and over and over again. And so the reality is worry, as an example, is using your imagination. So we do it all the time. Everyone does it all the time. Now, maybe worry is not your thing, but we all use our imagination on a daily basis, pretty regularly, but some of us don't realize it. We just haven't been paying attention. So that's one example. Another one that Jesus talks about, which is this is another negative example, is he's given this teaching and conversation with some people, and he says this. He says that if a man lusts after a woman, he's already committed adultery in his heart. So what does this tell us? Because the physical act of committing adultery with someone didn't happen, but he's saying that in his heart, the sin of it's just as if he did it, meaning that there's something very real about your imagination and how it affects your heart. And your heart is not your spirit, but I really believe the Bible actually has a lot to say about the heart. It's not your soul, it's not your spirit, but the heart is like a place that houses these things. Like it's a very real thing. And it's not talking about the heart that beats blood, your physical heart. So an example of good imagination that the Bible talks about is in Ephesians 1:18. That's the primary one that we use a lot. Is I'm not going to remember it exactly, but basically it's saying like that his light, that he would enlighten the eyes of your heart, the eyes of your understanding. In some translations, it actually says the eyes of your imagination. And so what is this telling us? That your imagination and heart are deeply connected, or potentially even one and the same, and that his light can come and just reveal it. It's about like that you would have revelation of the glorious inheritance that he finds in you. So this is speaking specifically about that through the eyes of your heart, your understanding, your imagination, that you would become aware of basically how he sees you and who you are and whose you are. So the imagination is important. It can be used for evil, but it can also be very, very good. So that's my brief little teaching on imagination. So if you have any questions on that, or you want me to go a little deeper, please put the questions in the comments. Love to go deeper in that if you guys want to hear more. So here's what we can do. I'll give you a quick little explanation of it, but you can build stuff in the imagination. And in fact, the reality is nothing that is created, even physically speaking, nothing that's created is created without first being seen in the imagination. So I believe, and I truly believe this, that our imaginations, or you could say the eyes of your heart, is a tool, let's say it this way, that it's a tool that we can grow in and learn to use to connect to the spirit realm. So there are other senses, like, of course, like, your eyes, your ears, you can hear in the spirit, you can smell. Many of you watching this, you've probably had experiences where you've begun to pick up a scent of something, and it's not a scent or a smell that was in the room before, maybe during worship or a powerful time of prayer, and you begin to become aware physically almost of these smells or sometimes sounds, like people that have talked about hearing angels singing during a worship time, and it wasn't a sound that was created by an instrument or people or anything. It was clearly a sound they were picking up from the spirit. So anyway, there's other ways you can connect and be aware of the spirit realm, but I believe you can grow in your awareness and in your imagination even, and learning to see things that are going on around you, to see what he might want to show you or teach you. The Holy Spirit can take you on little adventures of revelation and discovery, and sometimes just fun. But the imagination connects you to that. And one of the biggest disservices, so here's an encouragement for you. If you do begin to practice this stuff, you cannot entertain doubt. So here's the thing. At worst, you were wrong. That's it. At worst, you were wrong. Not a big deal, because we all have to grow. We all have to mature. Sometimes you might have an experience, both just in the real world day to day, and sometimes spiritually speaking, or you thought you heard God, but maybe you really didn't, kind of a thing. But as soon as you begin to entertain doubt and begin to question everything, you shut everything down. And you remove the ability to actually step forward, and you remove the ability to grow. Making a mistake is not really the problem. Making mistakes just means you're taking steps. So don't worry about that. Do not entertain doubt. As soon as you do that, you shut down your ability to connect properly. And I've experienced this myself, and I've had to face that, where I realized as soon as I just began to doubt some things a little bit, all of a sudden I couldn't connect anymore. So the key is belief and being okay with, you might be wrong sometimes, but it's okay. So don't entertain doubt. That's a big instruction and encouragement I would give you if you want to grow in this. So you can build something in the imagination. You can go places. You can experience things. And so here I'll give you kind of, I guess you could say, your assignment if you want to engage with this. So it might be during a prayer time. It might be, you might be having a time of worship, and so you could choose to do it around then. Could be none of those things. You could just choose to try it, so that's fine. You could try it right as soon as this video is done if you'd like. So here's what you can do. You need to find a comfortable place. This isn't like something to do while you're walking or working or anything like that. Sit down, lay down, whatever is most comfortable for you, how you want to be. Posture is important, so don't be all slouchy and you know what I mean. Like if you're gonna sit in a chair, sit nicely, sit well, and so your body's not distracted. Because part of it is actually training your physical body to be still. So being still is a major thing. So get in a position that helps you, that works for you, and close your eyes. Then another thing as far as like setting up the space, if you want to say, find some music. If you don't have to use music, I find it to be really helpful because it can block out like the other potentially distracting noises, and it can just create an atmosphere. Music affects the atmosphere. So there's one guy that I use all the time. There's other stuff out there, but one that I use all the time, is William Augusto. You can find his stuff on YouTube. So I'll say that again, William Augusto. You can buy his stuff on iTunes. I bought a lot of his music. They're like really long instrumentals that he creates from a place of worship. So really good stuff. And there are other people that do this, which is awesome. So you might already have some stuff like that. You might have other people you listen to, but turn something like that on. It's more of an ambient instrumental, like relaxing. It's not full of like, it doesn't have drums in it. It doesn't have all the stuff that creates like a higher energy or potentially distracting things going on. It's very soothing, simple, ambient kind of a feel. So turn something like that on and just sit and be still. So here's what I do. I'll give you a couple techniques that you might use. Techniques, I don't know if that's the right word. One way that I use for people when I'm helping them get to a place to connect with the Lord is sometimes I do this. Specifically, I do this in Sozo and some other activations that I've done where I'm leading groups and some stuff. And so here's what I do. I say, imagine that you are in your favorite place. So that could be, some people, your favorite place might be on a beach somewhere, sand, water, ocean, lake, whatever that is. For some, like myself, might be out walking a trail in the woods, or it could be in a garden. It could be in your living room, your bedroom, literally whatever. There's no wrong answer to this. It's just like imagine that you are in your favorite place. So what you do is you begin to build the picture of where's your favorite place. And then you see yourself there. So it's not like you're just looking at a picture. It's like, imagine that you are there. And then, if he's not already there, we would lead them. I would lead them to invite Jesus, or if you want to be with the Holy Spirit or the Father, but inviting him in. And then that can be the beginning of your encounter. Or another two that I use a lot, which I won't go too in depth with this, but because all the details don't really matter. But one that I use a lot is the garden. So not necessarily like the Garden of Eden, like full on like that, but I have a place where I visit with Jesus often, and it's a garden. And it's interesting because you think if you're using your imagination, like lots of stuff, like a dream world would just be constantly changing and moving. And that could be, but for me, the garden that I go to with him, it's often like the same, and like little things change, and it's actually developed and built over time, like things getting added, almost like it's expanding, if that makes sense. But it's this place that I connect to in the imagination, which I believe is connecting in the spirit realm. And I've had many, many, many encounters with Jesus where we're talking about stuff. He's showing me things. Sometimes it's just enjoying being with him. Like we're not really talking about anything or dealing with anything. We're just together. But the garden. So you could do something like that where you have a place that isn't a place physically. But it's just a place that you visit over and over again in the spirit with him. Another one that I have that I use, which is a little newer compared to when I started doing the garden, is the mountain. I just call it the mountain. It's actually called the Mountain of Abiding. I haven't really taught this one yet, but so I'm not going to teach it right now. Maybe in the next video or something, I'll do that. But it can be anything. You could get wild. You could go to the moon. Your imagination is limitless, right? It's only limited by what you can imagine. So the details don't actually matter. It's engaging with the imagination. If it's hard for you to think of all the other things, just start with like, where's your favorite place to be? And invite him to be with you. And you can talk about stuff, you can be together, you can just hang out, you could ask him questions. I mean, literally anything. The point is just to encounter him and actually building a place and a discipline of encountering him. And that can be coupled with worship. It can be coupled with reading the word in your prayer time and actually building in the spirit realm your spiritual atmosphere of your connection with him. So I'd encourage you to do that. Again, find a place to be comfortable sitting or laying down, put on some music to help create the atmosphere that's conducive to being in this kind of zone. Close your eyes, be still, imagine and connect with your imagination, and don't entertain doubt. So that's the key. It might feel like, how could this possibly be real? This doesn't seem real. But every person that I've led through anything like this, when they're experiencing it, even if they've never experienced this before, and this was like the first time, every person never questions if it was real, because as they're experiencing their time with him, it is absolutely real, and there's like no doubt whatsoever. So don't worry about trying to figure it out, or is this real or not? Just engage with him, and you'll know it's real, because it's him, and stuff will happen that you weren't actually imagining. It just starts to happen. So engage with that. If you have any questions or you want me to explain some things further, if some of that wasn't totally clear, feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'll get back on those, and it might be the next video where I go a little deeper into some of this stuff. But anyway, thank you, and I'll see you next week for the unseen.